Joining us now is Marshall alum and CNN correspondent Joe Johns. Joe, thanks for being here.
Hey, Leah. Really glad to be here.
Good. Thank you for taking the time. I know you've got a busy time here at Marshall. You, of course, are here on homecoming weekend, and some of our viewers will see this program later. But thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Always glad to come back.
What's it like being here on campus?
Well, you know, I come back a lot. I'm on the board of the Yeager Scholars program. I came back 2 or 3 weeks ago, not to the campus, but across town to accept an award as a member of the West Virginia Broadcasters Hall of Fame. And so I make it in when I can. And when I get to walk around, I'm pretty amazed. I'm really amazed at how good the campus looks and all the things that are happening here. It's wonderful to see this university that I walked onto the campus of in 1975 and how it sort of blossomed.
Very different from the late 1970s.
It sure is. You know, it was a little sleepier, and I think the other thing you have to say is that when I got here, the wounds were still sort of raw from the plane crash. This town was still trying to figure out how to come back, and the university was still struggling with it a little bit. I remember running into, from time to time, some members of that first football team, the rebuilding football team, they called them the Young Thundering Herd, on the campus. And as a young kid, you're kind of awkward, and you don't quite know what to say to someone who's sort of been through that. And so it was an odd time in a lot of ways, but it was also a good time because when I walked in here, it was all about healing, it was all about moving forward, and that's what Marshall was doing, and now you sort of see the results. This school is so back. The university, the community has all just, over the years, really done a wonderful job at rebounding and growing and moving forward.
Well, you were here in the late 1970s, and just quickly tell us why did you choose Marshall University?
I chose Marshall. Number one, it was about athletics. I lived in a neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, where there were a lot of college athletes, and we were all trying to figure out where we're going to go. And the sister of one of the college athletes told me, don't go to a school where you're going to have to get a loan. Go to a school where you can get an athletic scholarship. That way your parents won't have to pay, and they can worry about paying for your brothers if they have to. So I ended up looking at Marshall, and I loved it. I felt really embraced, and I loved the small class size. And so I came.
Well, we are so glad that you did. And I want to fast forward to your career real quickly because, of course, you graduated from Marshall in 1980 with a degree in political science and started your television career here locally and then started climbing the ladder and moving city to city as so many journalists do, and then ended up at NBC. What's it like to be a journalist on the national level?
It's a learning curve, but it's all same church, different pew. Once you learn the basic skills, and I had really good teachers like Dottie Johnson and others at Marshall. Once you learn the basics, it's all about sort of not being afraid, and if you just sort of keep moving, don't be scared to move up to the next level. Don't think in terms of millions of viewers when they turn the camera on. Think in terms of a few people in your living room, and keep it simple. Be honest. And it works. You know, it's not that much different. You just have to keep your focus and don't be afraid.
What is one of your favorite stories that you've covered?
Favorite stories? I was just talking about one of the most interesting things I think I've done across my career was this just fascinating trip across Africa with Bill and Hillary Clinton back in the late 1980s. Just a variety of different countries, and I got to see and learn so much. It's a lot of stories out there, you know. This election, this presidential election would be right up there. It was one of the most remarkable things. You know, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John McCain, Sarah Palin. Who would have thought that in the space of this short little time we would have so many different sort of historic figures running in the campaign, participating in American democracy, and they brought in such a flood of people. That story is right up there. It's one of the great privileges of my life to have covered.
Another question about your career. Graduated in 1980, started in the business. You have seen a tremendous amount of change technology-wise. How do you keep up with that in the field?
You do it or die. You know, you understand the internet when it finally arrives. You understand the way the cell phones. You're right. I've seen so much of it. Now, you know, we have different ways of communicating. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have all these different little sort of social networking websites that help me because I can stay in touch with news sources and friends and other people, and we talk to each other across the transom in that way. There's always something new. And if you don't keep up with it, you just go away and wither.
Well, I know we had this discussion the other day about bloggers and just how journalism is changing. Not necessarily, the dissemination of information changes via technology, but information is still being passed out, different methods. But now journalism is changing in that journalists are not necessarily professional journalists anymore. Just give me your feedback on that a little bit.
Well, they're individual journalists, and anybody who sits down and writes a blog can be a journalist. And you know, that's okay, because we in sort of the mainstream media want to think that we have the only way or we have the best way, but the truth of it is that the way information works, it always self-corrects over time. You get a piece of information, somebody writes and does whatever they want to with it. We learn more, the information becomes fuller and broader and more understandable, and then if there was something written at the outset that was wrong, it self-corrects. It's the same thing that happens in our business too. You know, it's just writ large for us. So I think everybody should have a voice. And, you know, obviously there are those people out there who feel as though, you know, journalism is sacred and it is what it is, and there have always been throughout our history people who have stood up and said, I'm going to uphold the standards of journalism. Well, journalism is very fluid, it's very dynamic, and it changes over generations. The fact of the matter is, we don't know who the next bloggers will be, or we don't know what the next form of communication will be, but we need to be ready for it, because you know, that's the way information works.
Well, we appreciate you taking your time to be here today.
Thanks. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Glad to be.